All right, so I just wanted, before we get into our panelists, I want to just give a little bit of an overview. I don't want to steal the thunder of our esteemed panelists, but we're going to talk about um, textured hair children and who are either adopted or fostered, or maybe it's even a blood parent who is caring uh, for these children who themselves are of a different uh, race, ethnicity, and of a different hair texture. So for my own disclosure, I do not have any financial relationship or affiliations with commercial interest on eligible companies to disclose. Dr. Lynn McKinley Grant has some commercial interests to disclose there. And I know that we will have our panelists as well, who are part of certain NPO organizations that I will have them disclose any financial partnerships or conflicts when they come on. Thank you. For the professional practice gaps, we are going to look at the issues of potential healthcare professionals that may lack knowledge of the special care needs of children with textured hair. Also, healthcare professionals may lack knowledge of hair care resources available that they can recommend to adoptive, foster, as well as blood parents caring for children with textured hair. Healthcare professionals may lack cultural awareness of the fact that hair care in especially the Black community is a source of pride and connection to their heritage. So learning objectives, we'll discuss the importance of building self-pride, self-confidence, self-love in children with textured hair who are cared for by these particular caregivers. We'll also recognize that teachers may serve as surrogate caregivers to children with textured hair. Also, we'll look at and recognize the role that hair care professionals may play in the hair care education of those adoptive, foster, and blood caregivers of children with textured hair. And when we talk about textured hair, we are talking about, Afrocentric textured hair, and those that are tightly coiled, that is not genetically of a straight hair strand. Also, identify hair care resources available to caregivers of children with textured hair. And lastly, we want to prepare healthcare professionals to address the unique hair care needs of children with textured hair with their adoptive, foster, and blood caregivers. So just to highlight some of the issues, we know in the foster care world, as of 2020, over 400,000 children were in foster care in the US. Now, when we break it down, Black children make up almost 14% of the population of children in the US, yet 23% of those are in foster care. So it's been shown through the US Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the United States Government Accountability Office, that Black children are twice as likely to enter the foster care system as white children and remain in the system about 9 months longer. But we also know, just in comparison to Black children, white children make up about 50% of the population of kids in the US around same time period, but only 43% of the children are in foster care. Hispanic children account for 22% of the kids in foster, but comprise about 26% of the children in the nation. So it shows that Black children especially are overrepresented in the foster care system. And many times that, lack of adoption may be from not able to find foster, or I should say lack of foster parents, or maybe just so many different issues that we will talk about today, as some of our panelists have been involved in those issues. One thing that I do know that is it is extremely important that those who are caring for children with textured hair who do not have textured hair themselves, they may not understand that Black experience, or understand that that child's hair is something that needs to be embraced and normalized, and that that it's not a challenge, or it's not difficult to deal with. That gets into the psyche of those children and can scar them for life. Many of you may have heard of the Crown Act, and that is an acronym for creating a respectful and open world for natural hair. And so this was a campaign that was led by the Crown Coalition, founded by Dove, National Urban League, Color of Change, and Western Center on Law and Poverty. And basically it's promoting a law that prohibits race-based hair discrimination. Many times natural Afrocentric hair can be discriminated against within different spaces, even within schools, but also as adults within the workplace. And we've seen it as well in our high schools, in sports and things of that nature. And so that is the denial of employment and educational opportunities because of hair texture or protective hairstyles, including braids, locks, twists, and bantu knots. And so this is just a diagram of where the Crown Act is law. And so wherever you see dark blue states, those are the states, and there's 20 of them now, that have adopted laws surrounding the Crown Act and anti-discrimination on natural hair, ethnic hair. And so you don't see any yellow where legislation is pending, but the hot pink states are where legislation has been filed or pre-filed. And then, of course, the gray areas where it has not been filed as of yet. So we've got 30 more states to go to adopt an anti-discrimination and the Crown Act. And so we're going to turn it over to our panel. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and introduce you to our panel that we have today. Let me get my thing off here. One moment. So I first want to introduce you to Yolander Clark. And if we can get her up on the screen, Yolander Clark, Miss Clark is an elementary school teacher at Parkview Adventist Academy in Oklahoma City. And she teaches 2nd through 4th grade many subjects. And she is a credentialed, commissioned ministry teacher. She received her bachelor's degree in biology at Jackson State University, and she is currently pursuing a master's in education degree with emphasis in instructional leadership at Southern Adventist University. We also want to bring on another panelist, Kim Bilger. Kim Bilger is a registered dietitian. She received her bachelor's in nutritional sciences at Texas A&M, and then received a master's in public health with emphasis in public health education and promotion from UT Houston. But for this purpose, she represents parents of children with textured hair. Welcome, Miss Bilger. We want to also welcome Emma Butler. Emma Butler is the founder and executive director for the Hair Initiative, and a nonprofit organization that partners with group centers, events, and other NPOs to bring hair resources to youth with textured hair and their caregivers, especially foster and adoptive parents, as well as blood parents, providing dignity to youth. She also received a bachelor's degree in political science at Oklahoma State University, and she's been involved in child advocacy on the county court and review board levels. Welcome. We also have Rashonda Coleman. Ms. Coleman is the owner of the Anointed Hands Express Blowout Boutique. This is a blow dry bar for textured hair right here in Oklahoma City. She works with the Hair Initiative in providing hairstyling workshops for textured hair. She received her bachelor's degree in business finances from DeVry University, and then went on to receive her MBA in HR management and services, as well as hospital administration from Keller Graduate School of Management of DeVry University. Welcome, Ms. Coleman. We also have Mr. Terrell Jackson. Mr. Jackson is a certified trichologist. He serves on the Cut It Forward Board of Directors and is active on their education committee. Cut It Forward is a nonprofit organization here in Oklahoma City, providing culturally specific hair and skin care resources for foster and adoptive children of color and their caregivers. Cut It Forward partners with multiple NPO organizations in Oklahoma that are caring for children. Welcome. And our last panelist will have bring back one of our dermatologists, Dr. Lynn McKinley Grant, that we had introduced earlier, an associate professor of dermatology at Howard University and former vice chair for diversity and community engagement at Duke University. So I would love for everyone to be on the panel view, and we will see if I can change mine. Okay. All right. Are you all in the big panel? Or are you still up high? I'm not sure if I'm.
It's a big panel.
Okay, I must not be in the right screen there. Okay. So at this time, I wanted to first bring on Miss Yolander Clark, and she is going to give some personal testimony and experiences working as a teacher caregiver to, especially a student that has textured hair. Miss Clark.
Afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Allen, for that wonderful introduction and for allowing me to speak about my experience in transracial hair care and bridging the gap in social, emotional, and the learning of the child in school. Let me share my screen with you. As Dr. Allen mentioned, I'm the second, third, and fourth grade teacher at Parkview Adventist Academy in the beautiful historical Oklahoma City. This year has been extremely educational for me regarding hair care for children and how it affects them socially, emotionally, and deals with their learning as well. My journey began with a little girl, and for her privacy, I refer to her as Z. She's in the first grade, so she's not in my classroom, but I would see her often when she was in pre-K and kindergarten. I would see her on the playground and at recess, and she was always laughing and talking and playing with her peers. But when she entered first grade, I noticed that there was no care given to her hair and her disposition changed. She went from this little girl with a big smile to her head was bowed low most days. She didn't play with peers. She was in the corner. If she did play, she was getting into arguments with kids. And her teacher mentioned to me that her grades were declining. And so one day I saw her in the hallway. She was late for school. She didn't want to go inside the classroom. And I knew it was because of her hair. So I asked her teacher, I said, listen, if you would just give me 15 minutes to maybe comb her hair, if she will allow me to, may I do that? And she said, oh, sure, because I don't know how to do black hair. So just the reference point, I am the only teacher of color at my school. We have a diverse population with students as far as ethnicities, but not with staff. So she was not familiar with black hair or how to assist a little girl. So I went to the little girl to ask her if it was okay if I could comb her hair. And she looked me dead in my eyes and she said, would you? And I felt it was a cry, it was a plea. And I said, it will be my pleasure. She said, I didn't know teachers would do things like that. And I said, well, I will. So I took her and this is how we began. This was her hair. It was very tangled. It was matted in some areas, but I washed it, restored the curls, moisture to it, and she was happy. She told me that she didn't think her hair was beautiful, that she had been told that her hair was wild like a lion's mane and it couldn't be tamed. And I told her, I said, that's not true. I said, Black women, we have beautiful hair. It goes in all directions. It comes in all textures. The curl pattern is different, but it's beautiful. I said, it's a part of you. And so after time, she began to believe that. And we were able to find some styles that she liked. We went from bantu knots to braids to ponytails, and she was smiling when she first saw herself in the mirror. She couldn't believe it. So for months, I've been teaching her how to take care of her hair, how to moisturize it. She picks out her accessories that she wants to go in her hair. This was the first time that she wanted to take a school picture. When I get her twice a week. I have her read to me, so learning is still taking place. Her teacher mentioned that her grades have improved. One of my favorite writers, Ellen White, says that you can't put on the child's mind what they are not ready to receive. And because the social and emotional part was not there for her, she was not ready to receive instruction academically. But once she began to feel good about herself and her hair, her grades increased and she's doing well. She's playing with her peers now. She can tell you what her night routine should be to put her bonnet on. And now she must have bangs. That's her signature style, is the bangs. So she wants bangs. So I was feeling that maybe I should talk to her mother to try to educate her on how to take care of her hair. But her mother wouldn't return any communication, but she did allow me to continue to comb her hair, and I was thankful for that. But this was Christmas, and you see, I learned how to finger coil, and she got her coils in. But when she came back after 2 weeks, this is what I was faced with again. And I spoke to the mother. I saw her outside of school, and she thanked me for combing her daughter's hair. And she said, if it wasn't for you, I would just cut it all off until she was able to do her hair herself. But she said now she loves her hair. She thinks it's beautiful. I told her, yes, it is beautiful. We were able to get it back going. I asked her just wash it for me every 2 weeks, and I would style it. And so now that Z has this confidence, she's now, the other day she was worried. She was like, well, what are we going to do during the summer about my hair? And I was thinking the same thing. She said, well, maybe I can ask my mom if you can come over once a week to comb my hair. So we will see how that goes. I'm hoping that it will work, but this is her now. She has embraced her natural hair. She loves it. I'm very passionate and intentional about quality education. And I believe it's more than just math and science and reading. It deals with the social, emotional learning of a child. And I feel that if we put into them, fill their cups up, it will flow over to others. So I believe social emotional learning programs should include hair care. Schools need DEI training. Teachers should become more comfortable assisting the child with their hair, even if they are from a different ethnic group. Our children need love and support. Their social emotional journey is just as important as their academic journey because they are connected. Thank you for this time to share, Dr. Allen.
Wonderful. That was almost, I'm in tears. But you have brought her such a long way. And I know that has poured into her a strength and, self-love that she had not received. So thank you. Thank you. I want to go to Ms. Kim Bilger and just her personal experience as a parent.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for inviting me. As she said, I am a registered dietitian, but I'm here today in my primary role in life, I think, and that is as a mom. I was gonna just show you quickly a picture of my family and see if we can get this to work here. So this is a picture of my family. You can see we all have different skin colors and hair textures. And my oldest and youngest are both girls, and they were both adopted. And there's a picture on the right that's just a little closer up of them. You can see that they have different hair textures even between them. So my oldest, Maddie, is 12, and her hair is has a very tight coil, a kinky curly coil, and she has tons of hair. It's very thick. She has a lot of it. And so we often keep it in these protective styles, like the braids you see with some extensions because she likes it longer, or in the twist that you see in this other picture. And then my youngest, Hallie, is 7. And she has a looser curl with a little finer texture to her hair. So hers, we do a lot differently. It's not one that would hold one of the protective styles for very long because of its finer texture. So it's a little bit more of a day-to-day fixing, that sort of thing. And even my son has decided to grow his hair out because I guess he thought we weren't buying enough hair products to our house as it was. I don't know. But so those are my girls and their different hairstyles. So from what we know about their birth parents, because they're both closed adoptions. We adopted both girls through a private agency, through domestic adoption as infants. They were both a month old when they came into our home. And from what we know about Maddie, both of her parents were, birth parents were African-American. And from what we know about Hallie, her birth mother is African-American and her birth father was Native American. And so we believe that's part of the reason for that varied texture in her hair, but they're both gorgeous. And when we started our journey as parents, and especially pursuing adoption for that, I was reading everything I could get my hands on. So things about trauma, things about loss, things about general parenting. And because we had said we were open to receiving a child in our home of any race, I knew that it was a possibility we would have a child with textured hair. And so I started reading about hair care. And, I wanted to do it all right. And spoiler alert, 3 kids later, I'm not doing everything all right, but I'm still trying. And what we discovered was, even though we had read all these things and I knew some things about it, we still had to start at square one when Maddie came into our home and figure out what product was going to work in her hair, which products weren't just going to sit on the hair instead of soaking in, which products were going to actually hydrate it to keep it from breaking off, or, those types of things. And also just balancing that challenge of keeping her hair clean, during the toddler years of getting food in it, but also not overhydrating it. And we've seen that kind of change over time too, as their hair has changed as they get older. When we brought Hallie into our home, she had what we like to call more of like a bouffant style. It was a very loose, relaxed wave. And then over time has coiled up quite a bit more to what you see in that picture. And then Maddie, of course, as she's gotten older, we see a lot of changes to, the oil on her scalp, how, she's a competitive soccer player, so she sweats a lot, she works out a lot, and just trying to balance those things in their life that they enjoy doing while still taking good care of their hair and their scalp. And so that has been a little bit of a challenge where I'm still learning a lot about that. And so a lot of how I found out how to do a lot of these things was simply because I was very persistent in asking questions and really just seeking out as much as I could. So early on, I found a class of an adoptive mom who also had a transracial family, and she taught us kind of the basics of African-American hair care and the do's and the don'ts and the product suggestions and the brush or comb suggestions and that sort of thing. And so that was kind of where I got my basics and figured out a few of those. And then I would seek out moms along the way that we encountered. Like there was a very sweet mom that we encountered in Maddie's first soccer team, whose little girl had these adorable beads on the end of her braids. And I said, will you tell me how to put those beads on? Because I knew how to braid and we were braiding Maddie's hair, but I didn't know how to do that. So then we got to add beads, which Maddie loved. And so just things like that. Then we got connected with Rashonda when we moved here, and she endures all of my million questions every time we come in her salon about what do I do about this? And have you tried this product? And what does this mean? And that sort of thing. So people like her have been invaluable to us. And then also, YouTube has been very helpful, especially in different types of hairstyles. Maddie sees girls at school that have certain styles of protective hairstyles that she thinks are really cool. And then, I do my best to mimic them or things. I'm grateful that as a child, my sisters and I braided hair a lot. So I had that in my wheelhouse already. And so Maddie and I do a lot of experimenting with braids and parting in different ways and stuff that she likes to give her some variety. And, Ms. Clark, your sharing just brought tears to my eyes as well, because I think about how my girls feel every time we try a new hairstyle that they wanted to do, or like for Maddie, she wanted to have her hair a different color. So we braided in some colored extensions, and just like that look on her face when she saw it in the mirror. And each time it's so neat to see, because you can tell that it does something for her self-confidence. And she'll come home from school and say, oh, so-and-so loved my hair. And I'm always even more complimented when it's an African-American friend who tells her that, but it's just important. And that's how she and her friends sometimes connect. They talk about how one of them does hair, or her sister does her hair. And then she'll come home and say, hey, guess what? This is what her sister does for that. Maybe you can try it. And I love that she's even seeking out that information too. And that it's a source of pride for her, because that was the big thing. That was my reason for seeking out so much information, is we wanted our girls to know how beautiful their natural hair was. And we didn't want to try to do anything to change that. We wanted to utilize the hair that they had, that God had given them, to show their natural beauty. And so that's what we keep trying to tell them. You know, I tell Hallie all the time that when we put her hair up in this bun, you know, those coils just kind of go perfectly in this, like, and all I did was put a rubber band around it. And I said, you have no idea how many women would kill for this kind of hair that you can just throw up like that and updo like that would take me an hour. So, so we really try to speak that into our girls about how gorgeous they are and how beautiful their hair is, just like it is, and how we can help take care of it to keep it healthy and just make them feel good about themselves. And, you know, we've even gotten to where Maddie knows how to detangle Hallie's hair after we shampoo and condition sometimes. So sometimes she helps me out with that. And that's neat that they can share that as sisters as well. So.
I'm so glad that you shared your personal experience. It's just wonderful to hear how eager, how you sought out help and, you know, wanted to learn. And that's not always the case, as we just listened. So thank you. Thank you for that. I wanted to also bring on Emma Butler. She has also her own personal experience, but also want to talk about her founding organization, the Hair Initiative.
All right, get this started real quick. My name is Emma Butler. Thank you so much, Dr. Allen, for having me. I'm going to speak really quickly about the Hair Initiative, which I think kind of ties in nicely to Ms. Clark and to Ms. Bilger about their experiences. And like you said, not every parent wanted to try or wants to ask those questions. So our organization is created specifically to address that. Any hurdle or kind of apprehension that a caregiver would have, we hope that they can seek out our resource to get those questions answered. We are the Hair Initiative. We are a comprehensive, diversity-conscious hair resource for youth and their caregiver. Our mission is to address the inequity in access to hair hygiene for youth and their caregivers. We got started out of necessity. In 2018, I was assigned a case, a CASA case involving a little girl whose hair was not getting done. And when I went to the big meeting with everybody about this child, her hair was brought up as an issue. And whenever I asked them, you know, where are they going to be sending this girl to get her hair done? The attorney said, we'll probably just send her to a Black DHS worker. And I was shocked that in 2018, that was the answer to something I thought, you know, this can't be new. Children of color and care is new. But as soon as I started asking questions, I realized that there was not an answer. I was inundated with responses back, but basically based on who I sent that inquiry to, their response to me was different. So if it was a caseworker, they were needing hair products and tools. If it was a caregiver, they were wanting a stylist referral or they were wanting education. So quickly, my co-founder, Christy Horn, and I got together and started building a resource directly to fill the need of the caregiver. What we realized in 2020 was that this issue of hair was not really specific just to foster families. We knew that the caregiver could mean so many different things to the children that we served. We know that it can be a foster or adoptive parent, but we also knew the child themselves could be a caregiver. We knew their teacher could be a caregiver, you know, their staff at an after-school care facility or a detention center, a nurse at a hospital or a long-term care facility. So we really wanted to broaden our scope so that we weren't just focusing on labeling the child, but instead identifying that caregiver and how best to help them. So we do that in a variety of ways. We do that through education, individualized partnership, and education. So we'll get to that next slide. Our first and most important is educating and empowering the caregiver. We created a judgment-free safe space for parents to interact with our hair care providers like Rashonda Coleman and with other hair professionals out in their community. We're hoping that by addressing the elephant in the room, we can kind of ease parents' anxiety about this topic, especially with so many things going on. A lot of parents, we realized, were really scared to ask questions. They didn't know how to ask. They didn't want to say the wrong thing. So we've kind of tried to alleviate all that anxiety so they can really get their questions asked and then answered. What we found is that we had like a 98% rate of parents just like loving our workshop. And one of the most frequent feedbacks we received was how comfortable they felt. And that means so much to us because we realized if we can't get over that initial hurdle, that we really weren't going to make an impact, but we've been able to do that pretty well so far. Secondly, are our tools. We give out these hair hygiene kits to every family that attends our workshops. We also ship these hair kits around the nation. I think we've shipped to like 12 other states so far, but predominantly provide those to caseworkers, to foster families, and to grandparents that are caring for their grandchildren, things like that, so that they have the main tools. We realize that finances are a really big hurdle. Black hair care products are expensive and determined by where you live. So if you don't live in a super urban area, you're probably not going to be able to go to Walmart and have a lot of the variety of products that you need. So we are seeking to fix that by putting these items in our kits and shipping them out to parents where they are. We also do stylist referrals. We have Miss Tracy and Miss Rashonda on here today, but right now I think we have 7 stylists across the state of Oklahoma. Our goal is to connect the caregiver with somebody in their area. That way, whenever we're done with our education, they're done with our hair care kits, they can go to somebody in their area that's in line with our mission. And like Kim said, answer all the questions they have and kind of be that sounding board for them on their child's hair journey, which I think is so important. And then, of course, we do our specialized programming. Now that we're not just doing foster care, we also assist the juvenile detention centers, inpatient facilities, hospitals, after school care programs. You name it, we're there. We also have something called the Hair Shop, which is a dignified, no-cost shopping experience at domestic violence shelters, visitation centers, and now we're working on one with DHS, so that kids and their caregivers and their workers will have a way to shop for them. And then lastly, I'm just going to end with our impact. We have affected over 1/3 of the counties in the state of Oklahoma through our resources, our hair kits, and our education. We know, especially in rural communities, this resource is really needed. And we've just been so excited to be able to showcase what we're able to provide across the state. And like I said, beyond. So our big thing is that when people think about hair, they often think of it, especially Black hair, being so elaborate that they think it's maybe this added thing. We believe at the base level, it's about hygiene, and at the human level, it's about dignity. And we truly believe every child deserves the dignity of a good hair day, and we're simply here to make that happen. So I believe that's all that I have.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That's just a wonderful labor of love that has just caught on for the state of Oklahoma, and we appreciate that. And so I'm just going to turn it over to your partner, Ms. Rashonda Coleman, and just tell us a little bit about your services and your connection with the Hair Initiative.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to share in this panel. I'm going to go to with the sharing of my. But while I'm getting that up, I will elaborate a little bit more about my part in the Hair Initiative. It's very important to me to be able to, can you all see my screen? No. Okay. There we are. It's very important to me to be able to take part in the bridging of the gap of hair texture education and being able to give a good foundation of what's needed in terms of caregivers taking care of the hair of the babies that they don't share the same textures. So when I was met with the Hair Initiative and the opportunity to educate, it's something that I had already, encountered in the salon from day to day. And people just want to know, people want to be educated. And so I already had the passion for what the Hair Initiative has already put in place. And I just think it's an honor to be able to connect parents with education, tools, products, and just whatever resources that I can help in this bridging of the gap. So I'll go to the next slide we have here, and I'll just talk about a little bit about what I've seen in the industry. We have a lot of scenarios of caregivers, whether that is, an adoptive or foster parent that comes in and needs to know how to approach the hair. And we've also seen, biracial children who have come where maybe the mother is Caucasian and they don't share the same textures. So they need to know, how do I approach this texture that's very different from mine? And it's just, as Emma says, the need is broader than what we realized when we got into it, because caregiver can be so many facets of dealing with children. So we've gone into schools and instructed teachers on how to deal with certain scenarios that they see with their students. And so it's very broad in terms of what we've seen in our industry. It's important to us to break myths, because a lot of things that are accessible are not necessarily what should happen or should take place. And so in our educational platform, we talk about breaking those myths. So, I don't know if you see over there at the bottom left-hand corner, there is a box of relaxer. And I don't know how many of you are following how relaxers are detrimental to health now. There's some concerns as relaxers connecting to cancers. But this box of relaxer, you can go into Walmart and find that anywhere. And so a lot of times if a caregiver doesn't have the baseline education, because, the hair industry is a very science enriched industry. So a lot of times if they don't have that education, if it's on the shelf, that means we can use it, right? So we educate about, how to use these things, who to go to a professional for certain things. There are myths about, lice. How, it's been said that certain cultures cannot get lice, and that's not necessarily true. So we try to break down those barriers and those train of thoughts. Also in that last slide we see, or the last picture we see, what we call a protective style. And just because it's a protective style, it doesn't mean that it has to stay up, for several weeks. So we just educate on, some of the approach to textured hair, the right way to deal with certain scenarios, and just bring clarity in the class. One thing that's very, very, very important to me is the perception of same race regarding transracial caregivers, because a thing that I see a lot is a lot of times I'll get parents who bring their babies to the salon and they have many questions, and I love that. But I always have to break this barrier. They feel like, can I ask the question? Is it okay? And I think it stems from a little bit of trauma, because as we're talking about bridging the gap, we've talked about bridging the gap for the caregiver, the teacher. We talked about bridging the gap for the educational for the caregiver. But also, I have seen a lot of African-American discrimination against caregivers that don't look like them, that may have adopted an African-American child. And I get very upset when I see that people have to experience that. So I've heard from different caregivers, they say they will go into a predominantly African-American shop to ask questions, and they're treated in an unkind way. And I feel like if we're bridging the gap, it needs to be bridged all the way around for the care of that child. So that's why it's very important for me when we're giving our workshop class to make sure that as we open, I let everyone know, no question is a bad question. I want you to feel safe to ask your question. And I want to aid in whatever way I can to help you care for your baby. So that's very, very, very important to me. And I think that's a part of the care for the child that doesn't really get talked about a lot. And I think that we should, explore maybe educating same race on how, don't discriminate. Let's all come together for the care of the child. And I think that is my last slide.
Excellent. And you are providing such wonderful work, educational workshops, and just keep up the good work. Our continuing professional development representatives are trying to get Mr. Terrell Jackson back up, as well as Yolander Clark. And in the meantime, we're going to have Dr. Lynn McKinley Grant to just, now that you've kind of heard a little bit about what's going on, and I know if you just Google, there are other organizations that are doing similar work in other states, as well as so many self-taught YouTube videos across the, wonderful work that is just out there for people to learn how to care for Afrocentric hair. But I also want to bring in the aspect of the medical professionals and where we fit in into the puzzle of maybe patients that we have, parents, no matter what their status of caregiving is, bringing a child with textured hair, having that conversation perhaps. Maybe they came in for eczema, but yet you're seeing a child's hair like what Miss Clark showed. How do we introduce or, start that conversation to see maybe how they are caring for that hair, or do they have, are they aware of resources? How would you approach that? On mute.
Okay, it's allowing me to
Yes.
now. Before it wasn't. Yeah. These are all, your solutions of each one of you are so amazing that because these are children who you're keeping out of our office for with future problems too. I think hair care early on is a source of future, your future, even your jobs, even though we have the Crown Act, but the having hair and the self-esteem and so many of the people who have problems now with the hair, it started very young with different styling practices, some relaxers, some pulling the hair, some braids not too tight. So I was too tight. So what you're doing is educating and looking at the braids, Ms. Clark, that you put in. There was no tension on the scalp, and we get people coming in with their children for other reasons, and you solve that problem. It's eczema or something, but then you look at the hair and you see this tight braid that looks like the roots coming out. And you really, the parent has spent a lot of time or money getting the style that they want. They've got really heavy beads on their hair too. And it's really, it's a sensitive situation. The residents are so funny. I seem to manage it well because I tend to play with the kids and talk to them. And I'm always trying to recruit kids into medicine and to dermatology particularly. So I figured we have to start very young. But the parents can be very, offended. I'm not here for that. I didn't come in here I came in here because of her eczema. And some parents aren't like that though. Many of them aren't. They're very appreciative, but they don't want to stop and take the hair out right this minute, which is what a lot of the kids look like they need. Let's just take it out and rebraid it, and it will look just as cute and not falling out. So I think what you're doing is just so important for the self-esteem and the some of the conditions that we get. Even simple things like, seborrheic dermatitis that is misdiagnosed and it's really fungus, and parents don't well, why are you going to culture my child's not dirty? But it's not. Fungi aren't caused by a dirty scalp. They're caused by the fungus that they got probably from school or from the guinea pigs, or there are all these different sources. So I think we do have to be very careful, but we have to look at things that seem common, that they can affect the future of the children and cause you to lose, a lot more hair. But I see we have some of the other people back too. Yeah.
Yes, I want to bring in Terrell Jackson, who is representing Cut It Forward, another nonprofit organization here in Oklahoma City. And I want you to talk a little bit about, again, your organization and your role in that.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. I am so not techie, so I'm going to get in trouble for not being able to share my screen properly, but I hope I can get this done. I am representing Cut It Forward, and we too are like the Hair Initiative and many other amazing organizations here in Oklahoma City. We are here to provide support for those caregivers, those foster families, those adoptive families, and again, anyone in need of just that culturally specific hair and skin care for their children, teenagers, young adults, as well as older adults. We just have those people that sometimes just don't know how to care for their hair. So we always look for those resources to try to help them with those different scenarios that they may have. We do that through workshops, whether it be one-on-ones, we do small groups, we do in salon, and if needed, we will come to their facilities, whether they be in a group home, whether they be in a private home with a family that that needs our support. And so we just put those things together to make sure that they have all the resources. Because again, not to be completely repetitive, because a lot of these organizations that we have are so absolutely amazing, but a lot of those challenges that people have are because of the lack of knowledge. They just don't know what to do, how to do it, how to approach it, the questions that they need to ask, the opportunities that they know that are available, and the things that they can do just to soften and love on those children for the needs that they have for their hair. We also provide those products that they need on a regular, continual basis. We have a warehouse where they can come to our facility, to our office, and pick up products as often as they need to, ask any questions that they may have. And they have constant contact with us through our website. We have a portion on our website at cutitforward.org where they can go and visit our website, and they can leave us private messages so that it's autonomous. Nobody knows who and what they are and what their needs are, just to help them understand that they don't have to be shamed into being able to answer the questions and get the information that they need to be able to provide that help for themselves or for their children. Because too oftentimes, myself being in the salon for over 20 years, those questions have been constant. And just like several of the other panelists, people coming to the salon and young girls, once particularly years ago, probably when she was about 7 years old, she said something that forever breaks my heart, that she didn't feel pretty. You know, the girls or the kids at school would tease her and would talk about her. And so in her mind, she just felt that she was pretty and was not pretty. And she wanted help with that. And so we wanted to make sure that we put together an organization that addressed those challenges and put together information, resources to address that. Our co-founder, Ms. Vanessa Morrison, was a product of that foster care system where a lot of her needs with her hair and skin went unmet. She did not have anyone that could help answer questions properly. She did not have anyone that had just a general idea about the things and the needs that she had. So she found the need to put together an organization to answer those questions, put together those resources, and her husband, Bruce, as the founders and co-founders, they begin to meet the needs. And so through our workshops, we've been able to partner with several organizations around the city, around the state, that address those needs and put together those workshops that we have so much fun and have shared a lot of those similar stories with the families and the individuals that, again, after attending those workshops, they feel so empowered. They just feel confident when they wake up in the morning and when they want to go play with their hair or when they want to go do different things or try different things. We put those things together and try to make sure that they have the necessary knowledge. We also educate them on some of the do's and don'ts. Being a professional myself and several of the others on our education team, we know some of the things that they should not do as far as the tension and the improper uses of products and whether they're going to be natural or relaxed, making sure that they are empowered with that knowledge. And if we don't have the knowledge, we do in turn turn them over to professionals such as the dermatologists in Oklahoma City and even in their areas, they may be in another state. And we make sure that they're connected with those resources so that they can be properly treated and have the necessary tools that they need to make sure that they can have healthy hair and skin. We are in the process now of launching a new program with our one-on-ones, because a lot of times people are uncomfortable talking in large or even small settings. Those one-on-one connections are really building that bond between themselves and their parents, so that they can have that knowledge that they need to know on how to properly care for their hair. We are excited about the different things that we can now do post-COVID. People are now, really getting back out and really getting in contact with themselves and getting back out and doing different things and trying so many different things that they've learned while we were dealing with the pandemic. So they've been on YouTube trying different things. And so we're excited now to put all these things together and help to bridge that gap and know some of the things that they not shouldn't do, but some in moderation, some hairstyling that they should do, like was mentioned about not leaving a hairstyle up, for 6 and 8 weeks, redoing it and properly treating it and different things like that. So at Cut It Forward, we are excited about being able to be a support system in the city and making sure that they know that there is support out there and that they will have somebody that will be with them and support them through their hair and skin needs.
Excellent, excellent. I just wanted to bring in one of our previous speakers, Dr. Alba Postligua from New Mexico. She's saying that New Mexico has 3% African-American population. Being a very rural state, we encounter difficulty in finding professional advice, products, community for transcultural hair care. This panel is so important. I'd love to know if Hair Initiative or other of the nonprofits would be available here. So it looks like Ms. Emma has already posted her email there for the organization. And for those as well that would like the information regarding Cut It Forward, I'd like for you to put your information in the chat as well, Terrell. Also, Ms. Roshonda, I went to your website and was just blown away, no pun intended, about your services and what you offered for curly hair, textured hair, and protective blow dry type of devices. And so that was just really neat. And so please feel free to put your information as well in the chat. Emma, I wanted to ask you, when we had talked before, you had your own somewhat of a personal story or experiences that I wanted to draw from as well, if you'd like to share.
Yes. So I know we talked also about biracial family. So I'm biracial. My mom's white, my dad's black. And growing up, I grew up in a predominantly white area. My siblings and I were one of very few people of color at our school. And all my friends had really straight hair. And I was often told with my hair in its natural state that it was crazy or wild or out of control. And those are words that really stuck with me, kind of into adulthood. So I would always try to get my hair straightened. My sister has big, beautiful curls, and she ended up getting a Brazilian blowout where her hair was, pinned straight. And so it's only been, in our late 20s, early 30s that we've really fully, and I think honestly through starting the Hair Initiative, was able to really embrace my curls and know how to properly care for them. Because my mom didn't know. By the time I was 9, I was doing my own hair because she just, she doesn't have much hair in her head at all. And so I think this is something we also talk about in our workshop, is just those words that you use to describe the hair. I think there's a lot of negative connotation, crazy, wild, like a lion's mane, to what you said, Ms. Clark, about your student. And those words really do affect you and how you view yourself in the world. And that's why I think education and having somebody that cares and that knows how to care for your hair is just so important.
Excellent. There is a question in the chat that says, I realize we are supposed to be unbiased with commercial products, but suggestions for basic shampoos and conditioners, moisturizers, more appropriate for Afrocentric hair would be greatly appreciated. That's a difficult question without mentioning brands. But would anyone like to take that on? And even if you say some brands, you can say multiple ones, so it's not promoting just one. But things that you want to look out for, what you wouldn't want in products.
The one thing that I try to tell a lot of people that we talk to in regards to products, because there's in natural hair, there's like a million brands. And I'm Miss Emma, Roshana, you guys know you can talk for hours about a specific product. But what I try to do is we try to break it down into categories and understanding what a proper shampoo is, what a proper conditioner is, what the moisturizer is, a leave-in conditioner. And it goes even in depth in our consultations, talking about the breakdown of the actual hair chart, from density to curl pattern to formulation and formations and things like that. So understanding what you're using it on will give you a better idea versus tracing the brand of the product. Because if you get into brand, you're going to get into a rabbit's hole about trying to really figure out what brand to go with. Break it into a category and figure out what you're actually needing it for, and that's going to happen through a really good consultation with whomever you're working with.
Yeah, I know I'm not a professional in the way of hair itself, but I can attest to the fact that I have tried, I don't know how many brands on my girls. And what we have right now in our cabinet is, I think Maddie has at least 5 or 6 different products that we use at different times for different reasons. And those probably span at least 3 or 4 brands just in that little group that we have. And then maybe one product that the girls are able to both use because it meets the need that they both need of their different textures. So I think you're exactly right. It's very hard to say this particular brand is amazing. I think for me as a parent, I've always leaned towards trying to find something with the least number of chemicals in it that I could. Having one that's like phthalate free, that sort of thing. To where I know that because it's being absorbed into my girl's scalp. And so I want to make sure that whatever I'm putting on their hair is not going to be causing them more problems. You know, Rashonda mentioned the relaxers. We've never touched one just because that's one of the things that I was afraid of burning them or something, horrible happening to them. So yeah, you just kind of have to look for, you're right. It depends on what you're looking for. It's not a certain brand necessarily.
There are
And
two brands that
go
were
ahead.
started by two women, I think, well, maybe it's 3 or more, but anyway, who are transracial children and have a story to go with it, that where the parents had so much trouble, combing their hair, detangling it. And they have both gone out and made products. And can I mention their names, or is that okay?
Yeah, if you don't have any
I
conflict
don't
of
have any
interest.
interest. Yeah, no conflict of interest. But Mixed Chicks is one, and the other is Sierra Naturals. And they're both, their story is that their mothers didn't know what to do with their hair, and I don't know how. So they decided to create products that would be easy to use, and to detangling products, because that's one of the issues that we have with hair, transracial, any curly hair, but even the straight hair now, that people are using these detangling brushes and then losing their hair because they're starting from the scalp and just pulling straight through. And that's an important thing for parents to learn, is that you want to start at the ends and use a comb, and you don't have to you shouldn't brush the hair, and just work your way up to detangle the hair. And often it takes people years to learn it, because we are trying to avoid breakage. The other thing is when the kids have dandruff, or if anyone has dandruff, you need to use a dandruff shampoo. So Head and Shoulders does make the Royal line is more of an oil, so that's not as drying to the hair. So that's something to take in. Or if you get prescribed something by your doctor, your dermatologist, then you want to use an extra conditioner to smooth out the hair so that it's not too drying and too tangling. So you have to get a mixture, but I always say, once you find something, keep using it if it works for you.
It is true that, Afrocentric hair tends to be more dry, especially the ends. In the natural state, think of it as a roller coaster of coils. And those oil beads that are produced from the scalp have a long journey torturous journey to get to the very edges, very ends, I should say, as opposed to someone with naturally straight hair, whether they're Asian, very straight. Their hair becomes very oily very quickly because it is like going down, fire department pole. That oil just comes down very straight and slicks and lubricates and becomes very greasy. So they will want to wash their hair almost every day. Whereas with Afrocentric hair, you may not wash it, but you're doing good if you can do it every two weeks. But I've had people where they had not washed for a month to 2 months. But then you're developing all that oil that is caking up within the scalp and the dead cells with that. And then it becomes very itchy. They see their hair ends are very dry, so they apply more oil on top, and that then can develop into infections, folliculitis, fungal, and become very itchy. And so there are those aspects. And one thing I usually will say is, our hair should be around 4.5 pH, but if you go to alkaline with your products, such as your chemical straighteners, your color dyes, and many shampoos and conditioners that contain sulfates will dry your hair out. And so looking for those products that are sulfate free. And there are those even under the Pantene brand. And they have also an ethnic brand as well. I'm blanking on what that is. But it is one of those that really can help lubricate, but also loosen the curl with their products as well. So just something to think about. Go ahead.
Someone mentioned about lice, and it was once thought that lice did not affect black hair, but what's happened with the lice have trouble with the tightly coiled hair, but with the straightened hair, they love straight hair, so they will go to. They don't care what color the person is. They will go to straight hair. The lice will go to straight hair. So that's where a myth, and I'm not sure with but during COVID there was less. We had much more natural hairstyles and lots of information about how to. And I think there were less cases of lice too that were seen during that time period. Mainly because people probably weren't going to the doctor, they weren't going to school, but it seemed that the cases were fewer.
And we have a partnership with Lice Clinics of America. And the one in Tulsa actually developed their own way of removing lice from highly textured hair. And so that's something that we're able to offer our families as well.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent information. There is a question for Ms. Bilger. What are some ways that you think we can reduce the societal stigmas about adoption so that perhaps people will be more willing to adopt children of other races with different skin colors that do not look just like these adopting parents? As you have adopted children with a different skin color than yours, have you seen a change in the perspectives and/or language of people around you regarding adoption in general, or adoption of children with differing appearance?
Well, it's a great question. I think it probably could use a few symposiums just on that topic. But I have seen a little bit of a shift. I do feel like we encounter more adoptive families that have mixed races. And however, we live in a metro area. So I know that is unique to metro areas. I feel in a lot of ways. Not that there aren't rural families that have transracial families, but also we seek out other families that have adopted. We connect with other families that have adopted. So I don't know if my world is really representative of the world as far as that topic, or our nation on that topic. I do think there is still a lot of stigma associated with it. And I think Rashonda, even approached a good subject about how African Americans feel about transracial adoption, because as I said, I was persistent in my questions. That doesn't mean all of my questions were well received by people. That doesn't mean all my questions were answered. And so there's something still there that's going to create some barriers, I think, for that. But I do think I've seen a little bit of shift. Like I said, my oldest is 12. And so we've been part of the adoption process since 2 years prior to that was when we got everything started. And there has been a big shift. In fact, at that time, there was a specific program within our agency that was geared towards families open to transracial adoption, because it was a way to sort of streamline getting babies into homes, because there was a while where, African-American or biracial children were waiting, even in private adoption situations, versus now where the adoptive families are waiting, no matter the race of the child. And so I do think there's been a little bit of a shift, but there's always room for improvement in that area, in my opinion.
Yes, any additions, Ms. Clark? One thing I wanted to ask the organizations if they partner with schools or at least have workshops with teachers and who have identified maybe their students or those in school that may have the same needs as Ms. Clark's child.
Yes, we do. We've done workshops at multiple schools. We're actually working with a homeless school right now with their kiddos and caregivers, hospitals with a lot of their caregivers, nurses, and we're partnering with the school this summer, KIP. We're helping them produce like a hair, or they're doing a health expo, and we're going to be there with Rashonda helping provide hair resources, haircuts, things like that, and hair hygiene kits, so that all the kiddos have what they need over the summer to care for their own hair. So we are absolutely open. That was a big part of us broadening our mission, is so we were able to help children kind of just outside the scope of foster care. So if there's any need where hair is involved, we just reallocate the resources we have to fit that need. So Ms. Clark, if y'all need hair brushes, hair products so that you can style, shampoos, conditioners, we've definitely got you covered.
Thank you so much. I will be reaching out to you.
Excellent. Well, I can't believe that we could go on probably for another hour or two, and we have already gone past our time, but I just wanted to give you all just maybe 10 seconds each to say something that will help our audience understand the importance of hair care within our transracial kids of textured hair, but also to the caregivers and the healthcare professionals and those who are in training on how to approach parents who may be struggling. All right, I'll go with Ms. Rashonda.
I would just say, make sure to connect with professionals, because, yes, YouTube is a avenue, but there are a lot of self-proclaimed experts out there. And it's very important, even if it's just for a consult, to connect with a professional. And then to the professionals, it's very important to connect to the medical field, because there are certain things that I think, just being in my realm, that we can't, we have to know our lane, and we have to know how to pass the baton if we see a scalp issue or whatnot, and just build your network, build the network to from parent to professional to the medical staff, and just have this nice haven where we can all be educated and we can all make sure the child is left whole.
Thank you. All right, let's go to Mr. Jackson.
Reach out. Those that are attending this, you now have several amazing resources to reach out to. Just like they always say, no question is a dumb question. I would rather you ask it and receive not the full answer, but at least some information. Reach out and know that there is help and hope out there in your community, and continue to seek professionals. Just like Ms. Coleman said, having professional help is one of the things that have been detrimental to our community because of YouTube and all the different resources. But they have now soon realized I need to kind of backtrack and go back to those professional resources and find that out. Reach out to your organizations. There are several amazing organizations in your community. Use them. That's what they're there for. We are here to help you guys. We get no greater satisfaction than to know that you are supported and that you have all of your needs met when it comes to your children's skin and hair.
Wonderful. Ms. Kim?
I would actually reiterate both of those because as a parent, like I'm always looking for a physician who's going to be knowledgeable enough in, for example, scalp issues. We've had our share of them. And if they're not, to be able to say to me, I'm not sure, but I will help you find out. Because if it's not something they've encountered before, then giving me just a vague answer or whatever is not really that helpful, but actually saying, I don't know, but I'm going to learn. And so symposiums like this are great. Reaching out to professionals, absolutely, because that's what I'm going to be there for. I'm looking for a physician who's going to be able to care for my child, whether it's my child of pale skin color or a skin of color. And so being able to be more diverse, or at minimum seeking the information you need for being a more diverse physician, is very helpful.
Excellent. Ms. Clark?
I would say for teachers, don't be afraid to try and to reach out to others. I'm glad that there are organizations that can help, and the mission that has been placed on my heart to help other kids, because now that I started with Z, I have many kids now who come to my classroom asking, may I have a ponytail? May I have a braid? Just last week, I have a little girl who has albinism, and I'm like, I've never worked with that texture hair before. So I'm glad that the resources are here. So I will be reaching out as a teacher as well to get more information so that I can help as many as I can.
That's right. And I know that Ms. Clark bought all of those products that she uses on Z. So these resources can be very helpful for you. All right. Ms. Emma Butler?
I would just say, have grace with yourself. Even as somebody that has highly textured hair, it is a journey. I think maybe families that look similar get a little bit more grace than families that are transracial, in terms of how their kiddo's hair looks. Out in public, like I can afford to have a bad hair day, and so can my kiddo if I look like them. But when I'm out with my mom, it might be perceived a little differently because she doesn't have my same skin color. So I would say definitely just to have grace. And as someone maybe extending a kind helping hand, if you see somebody confused in the hair aisle that might be scared to ask you, we've come across that a lot, but also just to ask questions. That's the kindest thing you could do, is be inquisitive and curious and really want to understand.
Excellent, excellent. Dr. McKinley Grant?
Yeah, I find that one of the most valuable things I had with my child was the time spent combing her hair. We combed hair every morning, and I felt so badly because she's eating a bowl of cereal and I'm combing hair while she's eating, just to get out of the house. And so many parents are so stressed out time-wise. A lot of the hair care goes to the wayside because of the time, to get the kid to, I have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, a lot say. So I would look at two things. One, of seeing it as a time, just once you've learned how to take care of the hair, to spend that time with the child, and then also to eventually teach the kids how to comb their own hair. I mean, I was kind of old before I was like 12. My mother was still doing my hair, but it's I think but there's so many women we never went to the beauty shop. We couldn't afford to go to a beauty shop to have our hair done. It was definitely not in the budget. So I think I've done my hair really most of my life. I go occasionally, but I think to train people how to take care of their hair is important too, for transracial and for Black kids too. Yeah, it's
Excellent. Really quick question. Someone asked, are there organizations similar to yours in Texas, especially in the DFW area? Would love to get involved. Do you know of any?
I heard of one through the DHS program, their DHS, but Terrell, you might know more than me about that.
Oh, no, I was actually going to say that we are actually in the process now of broadening our scope of partnerships. That Emma, I'm not 100% sure, but I think we somebody from our organization had talked to you about a collaboration for this summer. But we are in the process of doing that. I don't know a specific name, but I will say that for Cut It Forward, we are in the process now of expanding that scope of reach. So if they can reach out to us, even right here in Oklahoma City, we will have those resources that we can get to them. A lot of them will be via satellite right now, but we are in the process of putting together that reach to get to them, so they can reach out to us and give us their information, and we'll be glad to connect them with however we can.
Excellent. And just, you know, on the internet, I just Googled transracial hair care, and it's amazing what pops up. And many other organizations in other states that are doing similar work. So audience may want to kind of just do that and see what you find, but also maybe put your own state or city in, and especially in our larger metropolitan states, I'm sure in cities you'll find that. But it would be wonderful if there was like a collective list of these types of organizations found in different states. That would be nice to have as a resource. So maybe sometime we can get that together as well. But I want to thank you all. It's been a wonderful panel discussion, and it sounds like we've made some great networking relationships right here. And we will continue our work, and it takes a village. It really does. It's on all aspects of the child's care, whether it's medical or whether it's teacher or a hairstylist or a parent, foster or an adoptive parent, and organizations that can bring financial resources and products as well for this. So thank you all.